Top 10 little-known UFO sightings with multiple witnesses. Most UFO sightings are seen by just a single individual, which makes it more difficult to persuade anyone that the sighting was just not only the illusion of somebody's creative mind. However, several experiences are taking place in front of several witnesses, and, because of this, it can change the perspective of individual minds. Even though these instances are not supernatural, the fact that most of the people encountered these things at a similar time means that something did happen. Maybe more particularly, this suggests that these events are not simply the creation of the mind. If you've enjoyed this Tiptop 10 video, be sure to share and hit the red subscribe button so you never miss the latest top 10 lists from the mundane, craziest, weirdest, yet normal things we've ever seen in our lives. Number 10. Hudson Valley Sightings, New York, early 1980s. With the 4th of July festivities quickly approaching at the end of June of 1983, part of the night sky over New York Hudson Valley was overflowing with fireworks. This was the outcome of festivities for the early Independence Day celebration. Suddenly, a low buzzing sound came out of the many explosions of color, taking with it a massive disc-shaped craft about the width of about 16 or 17 buildings. As it floated over the observers, the peculiar murmuring stopped and the craft merely hung in the air in an awkward silence. A few minutes after the UFO initially showed up, the murmuring started again and the craft went off at a great speed. This was only one of several UFO sightings in the early 1980s in the Hudson Valley. However, it was not the only one to have numerous observers to any occasion. On March 24, 1983, there were so many accounts of seeing mysterious objects and peculiar lights in the sky of Yorktown that the town's switchboard completely collapsed that evening. The Taconic Parkway was crowded with cars that abruptly stopped. Their mesmerized drivers were now standing beside their cars looking at a suspected UFO flying above them. Number 9. Arthur Kill River Incident, New Jersey Turnpike, 2001. On the night of July 14th and in the morning of July 15th of 2001, around 15 individuals saw odd, brilliant orange lights above the Arthur Kill River at the New Jersey Turnpike. It seemed like that they were in a V-shaped formation, but it was not clear from several resources whether these lights were independent elements or whether they belonged to a wide V-shaped aircraft. Some people claim that the lights were in a more dispersed pattern and completely vanished in the sky at night, one after the other. Newark Airport was called, but they had not found anything suspicious on their radar. As per the National Weather Service, there was no abnormal climate that night either. Witness Veronica Bagley was able to catch the lights on record. In the meantime, another observer, Patty Ercolino, said that the entire situation was, quote, very calm, very peaceful, and very lovely, end quote. She also claimed that they had experienced some kind of wonder. Number 8. The Costford Incident, Western England, 1993. As per UFO expert Nick Pope, more than 100 people registered seeing the UFO in the evening of March 30th and in the early hours of March 31st, 1993 in the west part of England. In addition, several observers were on duty, including police and army staff. Pope worked on this case professionally, as he did during the time he spent with the British Ministry of Defense. Many sightings identified the triangular object that was traveling across the night sky at blazing speed. One specific observer, a cop, was with a team of scouts on the Quantock Hills in Somerset. They defined the entities as, quote, like two Concords flying next to each other and connected together, end quote. There have been more confirmed sightings in Cornwall, Devon, West Midlands, and also over 2 RAF bases in Shropshire, RAF Shawbury and RAF Costford. Neither base was able to pick up the mystery ship on the radar. At that point, Pope noted this in his report simply as a major defense that ought to be explored further. Number 7. Ellsworth Air Force Base sightings, South Dakota, 1953. Various military members had seen a UFO in the evening of August 5, 1953, near Ellsworth Air Force Base. There were also 45 troubled inhabitants of neighboring towns who experienced strange incidents. The first sighting was accounted at 8 p.m. in the town of Blackhawk. Ms. Kellyan, a member of the group Observer Corp., had seen a mysterious bright red light in the dark night sky. Well, as she was taught to do, she immediately registered the sighting. She was subsequently assigned to the on-duty radar operator at Ellsworth Air Force Base. The craft was definitely seen on the radar, simply moving towards the base. The F-84 jet fighter on guard duty in the zone was guided to the target. As the F-84 arrived within 5 kilometers of the disc-like craft, the UFO rapidly moved away. While the F-84 tried to pursue, it was not able to reach the speed of the UFO and simply returned to Ellsworth. The pilot reported that he was able to see the target clearly, but simply was not able to keep up with the UFO. The F-84 did suffer some bizarre glitches on the aircraft as well. Number 6. Exeter, New Hampshire, 1965. A gentleman by the name of Norman Muscarella was catching a ride home to Exeter, New Hampshire, early on September 3rd in 1965. Calmly finding his way along Route 150 while watching out for his next possible trip, Muscarella spotted a curious light in the dark early morning sky. In a matter of seconds, the light was moving straight towards him. Expecting that he would be hit by a mysterious plane, Muscarella threw himself to the ground on the side of the road. And at the very last minute, the UFO changed its course. Muscarella stood up and left the area as quickly as possible. Just an hour later and a couple of miles away, Eugene Bertrand, an on-duty police officer, had come upon a stopped car on the roadside. Inside the car was a woman who desperately told Bertrand that she had been pursued by a flying craft. However, Bertrand convinced the woman that there was no reason to worry. Actually thinking that the woman had been wrong, Bertrand moved on his way. It was about 3 a.m. when Muscarella entered the Exeter police station. Soon after that, Bertrand came back and listened to the tale himself. Then, he took the young man back to the Route 150 to inquire further. After parking on the same block of the lane, the two men eventually saw a mysterious plane. As it had been before, the craft moves nearer to the men. Both of the men got frightened and ran immediately back toward the police car. After a couple of minutes, notifications about additional sightings started to come in. Number 5. The Greifswald Lights, Germany, 1990. Since the beginning of August 1990, peculiar spherical lights have been recorded regularly from the coast of the Baltic Sea. By August 24th, the lights seem to have passed inland and were actually confirmed by the people of Greifswald, Germany. Initially, the odd discs were almost immobile in the air for about 30 minutes. Many observers have been able to take photos and even video recordings. This case is considered to be one of the best known UFO sightings. It appeared to be made up of two different sets of lights. The first collection actually formed a circle and remained relatively stable. They moved as one as they passed. The second set of lights appeared to be in the form of a Y. Neither the Mutual UFO Network nor mainstream scientists have been able to provide a strong or adequate description. Number 4. Fort Beaufort, South Africa, 1972. Without a question, Benny Smith claimed that he had encountered an unusual craft at his farm on June 26, 1972. Moreover, he claimed that he had seen a top-secret military aircraft, not tourists from another planet. Smith's farm was situated about 16 kilometers from Fort Beaufort, a town in the Eastern Cape Province of South Africa. On the morning of June 26th, Smith found his laborers shivering in a farm shed. They claimed that something mysterious was floating above the trees in one of the fields. Well, Smith decided to investigate, and he actually saw a curious sighting. The farmer immediately fired his .303 rifle at it. He believed that his target was to his right and that he had hit the mark. However, the bullets did not have any impact. Smith called the nearby police, who showed up within a moment to see the craft landing on the land. The UFO seemed to be the similar shape as an oil drum with 3 separate legs beneath it. One of the officers, Sergeant Kitching, also shot his gun at the aircraft. This time, the UFO seemed to be reacting to the discharge. The mysterious object had started to change color from black to green, then it becomes yellow until it eventually became all white. The spectators heard a clattering sound before the craft flew off from the ground and simply disappeared. Number 3. Sighting over Houston goes viral online. Houston, Texas, 2014. On August 11, 2014, several individuals in Houston saw a hover of lights in the night sky. Pictures spread quickly over web-based media accounts. At the point when video film of the experience was made accessible on the internet, it became clear that the lights were moving individually and were not a stationary circle. Dr. Carolyn Sumners of the Houston Museum of Natural Science warned that no one could believe that the unusual object was an alien tourist. With UFO reports, she said, we need to find out what else it might be rather than just aliens. However, no formal clarification or hypothesis has been made available since then. Eyewitnesses of the incident have their own ideas about it. Not unexpectedly, many people assume that the lights were perhaps of extraterrestrial origin. Others, however, thought they saw a government helicopter or even a glimpse of light from the nearby football stadium. Number 2. Mass UFO sighting during baseball game, Vancouver, Canada, 2013. During a small baseball game between the Vancouver Canadians and the Everett Aqua Sox in 2013, hundreds of spectators turned their attention away from the game as a mysterious object showed up over the ground. The UFO was triangular in shape with lights around its corners. Even the players seemed to note an aerial abnormality. After the match, one player talked on social media about the alien spacecraft that had been seen. Many photos and videos soon appeared online, although no official statement was actually given. The local newspaper, however, reported that the UFO may have been seen and it almost looks like a remote control helicopter. But the reality about the UFO was discovered just a few weeks later. The entire thing was a marketing campaign to publicize a new planetary theater at H.R. McMillan Space Center in Vancouver. Maybe this is why Vancouver had much more UFO reports than any other Canadian city in 2013. Number 1. The Trinidad UFO Incident, 1958. In October of 1957, the Brazilian Navy built a scientific research base on the island of Trinidad. By January of 1958, they experienced some of the most unusual UFO encounters of the 20th century. Upon the establishment of the base, the staff started to encounter an odd silvery object that seemed to track their behavior. On the morning of New Year's Day of 1958, the entire garrison saw a peculiar light flying in the sky. The next night, a flickering light surrounded one of the Navy ships for about 10 minutes. Commander Carlos A. Bacalar launched a weather balloon on January 6th. However, he noticed that the signals that were meant to be produced had unexpectedly ceased. As he looked up at the sky, he saw the balloon was sucked up into the cloud and simply disappeared. A little while later, it suddenly appeared without its instruments. A few moments later, a silver object came out of the same cloud and slowly made its way out of the scene. On January 16th, a group from the Naval Force experienced an unusual bright sight. It was moving over the ship and towards the island. One spectator was able to take multiple photos of the aircraft, and once the photos were made, they were immediately delivered to the press. If you've enjoyed this Tiptop 10 video, be sure to share and hit the red subscribe button so you never miss the latest top 10 lists from the mundane, craziest, weirdest, yet normal things we've ever seen in our lives.